Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Club. I'm Graham.
And I'm George.
All right, we've got ourselves another Premium Game Club conversation. This month, for the month of March, we played TMNT Shredder's Revenge.
Once a month, all our Premium Game Club members get to vote on what game we play. And that's what people voted on. If you want to vote as well, join up. You know,
That's right.
Maybe you can decide you can be the deciding vote as to what game we play next month. Imagine.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And at the end of this discussion, actually, we won't have any information on the next game. We'll have in the description, though, and probably in a pinned comment, we'll have what the next game will be because we haven't yet voted on it. But hopefully that should be going on soon. But we are joined by our Premium Club member. I was going to say members, but this week it's just one. You can come into multiple conversations, by the way. Every conversation we've had has featured someone different, but everyone can keep coming back as long as you're still a Premium Club member. But this week, or this month, we've got TLK. Hello, TLK.
Hello.
Welcome.
We'll just jump right into it because this is a bit of a small game. So
Yeah.
What have you had any background, George, about playing any TMNT? Like, what's your TMNT background? I don't even know.
So I know very little. I mean, I watched like maybe 2-3 episodes of like the Saturday morning cartoons of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is not only my first game, TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. It's also my first. What would you even say this like genre of game is? It's like an arcade brawler, kind of, right?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Like I'm totally new to everything in this game roundup, and that's one of the things I actually like a lot about our the Premium Game Club here is it exposes me to games that I otherwise wouldn't have picked up by myself, and I think this opened up a liking to a brand new genre. I didn't expect to like, an arcade brawler as much as I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this game. As short as it was, which probably helped on the enjoyment side.
Sure.
But yeah, I had a great time.
Okay, interesting. Very cool. I, on the other hand, I was like a moderate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. When I was younger, I hated any show that featured real people almost like exclusively. The TMNT live action stuff really had that like happy medium where it was live action, but it also had like people in like cartoony costumes. So I was like, I'll tolerate you. Okay, turtles, you can stay. But I watched the cartoon. I never was like a big fan, but I just enjoyed it. It was like there and I enjoyed it. But one thing I really did like is there was some old arcade like brawler beat 'em up games that featured TMNT. They were like arcade, I think. I can't remember exactly what the platform was, but there was a Simpsons one and there was a TMNT one, and I played both of them and really enjoyed them a lot. Like they were like such a treat to play when I was younger. I really liked them a lot. I don't exactly, I can't exactly say I felt the same way going through this game.
Okay.
I will get into like the specifics about why, but I felt like a lot of the whimsy that I had as a young kid wasn't really something that carried over to my playthrough of Shredder's Revenge. It wasn't. It was in no means bad, but it certainly wasn't. I was really anticipating this because of that background. I was like, oh well, this is great. I haven't played one of these games in forever, and I love the TMNT ones back in the day, but. Yeah, it was a surprise to me, to be sure. What about you, TLK? Do you have like a TMNT background or like a arcade beat 'em up kind of background?
So as far as TMNT, I have like basically zero background other than, I mean, this is kind of funny, but like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1 and 2, I played those games and those feature those characters, right? So like my experience was like, oh, he's got the pizza slice, like the move from Nick Brawl, which is like goofy or whatever. But like, so like I ended up picking Raphael when I was playing the game because I was also playing Raphael in Nick Brawl 2 at the time, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny that like might as well play with the same character just to see the differences. So,
Sure, sure.
um, as far as arcade beat 'em ups, my experience is just kind of like, like, oh, there's this game on NSO, Nintendo Switch Online, and you can play it online. So, hey, random friend of mine, let's play through this for an hour just because we're bored, like. So I
Uh,
have like a little bit of experience. This is probably better than like any of the other ones that I've played, which isn't that many, but like it
Right.
is better than those.
Sure. Yeah, there's
yeah.
certainly not a lot of games in this genre. This is like a very small genre. I know Vanillaware made a game that's like this. Oh, what did they make? Does anyone remember what that game
I
was that they
don't.
made?
I don't. I know very little of like the only other like arcade. And I don't even know if it really qualifies as an arcade, but the only like brawler that comes to mind is Sifu. That's the only other one that I can think of.
Is it
And
really the same though?
well, that one's like supposedly difficult. This was not very difficult at all. It was
Well,
very
but Sifu is like isn't Sifu that yeah, it's like a 3D kind of game. It's not quite really the same in a lot of
yeah.
ways.
I picture it as a brawler, right? Because like you're still like a one dude against many
Yeah, that's
fighting
a good
them.
point. Interesting. I never considered that. I guess they are kind of similar in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's
game I
like
was
the only
thinking of
other brawler. I can't think of anything else. So
Right. The game I was thinking of is Dragon's Crown by Vanillaware. I played that as well.
Dragon's Crown.
There's a
I've
Scott
never even heard of
Pilgrim
it.
Saves the World is also another really popular one.
Yeah,
Of
okay.
the beat 'em up. I mean, Streets of Rage I think is another one, but like it's so rare. Like these games are so freaking rare, and I mean. I don't know. I feel like I was gonna like this game more than I did. I think maybe we can start into like our first impressions here. One thing that really killed it for me was the player. I feel like you got smacked around a lot in this game. Like it felt like my attack priority was super low, and every time I would try and like throw out attacks, more often than not, the enemy's attacks, if we collided, would always win out on mine. And so I felt like I was getting knocked around a lot. Like I made liberal use of the dodge. One of the moves that you can do is like if you like run and then hit jump, you'll do like a slide, and that had like invuln on it to a degree. So those attacks were certainly helpful. Those like tools were helpful, but it never really felt like it. Always felt like I was just kind of like. Like in the arcades where they try and be oppressively difficult and like bleed you of quarters. I don't know if anyone's had like the experience
Yes,
with those
yeah.
arcade games, but like that's what it kind of felt like. But I was like, bro, I'm at home. Just like leave me alone. Just like let me. Why are you being like this? Like just let me enjoy the game. So I felt like I really never could get in a good flow where I was really like, oh, I feel like I'm mastering the combat, and I feel like, and maybe that's just like not this game. It's like, bro, it's just a beat 'em up. You're not supposed to like master the combat or something. It's like, okay, if that's the case, fair enough. But I really did feel like I could never really get comfortable and start really getting into the flow of the combat. Did anyone else, George, did you feel like that?
I think I had complete opposite experience. So, couple questions. First off, what character did you play, and what difficulty did you play it in?
So I played on the middle difficulty, the normal one. It's just
Okay,
like
yeah, that's what I
okay,
did.
because there was like chill,
Yeah.
okay, and something else.
Something, yeah,
Yeah,
but
so-
it's basically easy, medium, hard. It's
Yeah,
basically,
right. And so I played on that difficulty. I initially started as my favorite character in TMNT, which is Leonardo.
Okay.
So I started with Leo, and it was, fine. And then I was like, okay, if something's not clicking, let me try some other characters. And I tried a bunch of other characters. I played the character with the pole arm, the like staff,
Okay.
and I can't remember what his name is.
Donatello.
Donatello, that's what it is.
I'm not
and
the
then-
person to turn to for the turtles' names.
Come on,
I know them
someone-
all collectively. I don't know like individual
Right.
who's who. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I tried. I don't know if you guys had access to the other characters, but I had access to the Usagi, which I thought was very funny. If did anyone have access to Usagi? Do you guys have all the characters?
She was the one with like the purple, black hair, purple kind of outfit.
No.
Is that who that is?
That's it was the rabbit.
The rabbit. Okay. I don't think I
Yeah.
had access to him either.
Which I find very funny because Usagi is literally just the word for rabbit in Japanese, and he's literally like a rabbit samurai. I thought that was quite funny. And then I played that girl, the true leader of the Foot Clan girl, who and she was like fine too. And then who else did I play? Oh, and then I played April, the reporter, and
That's what I played.
I tried them
Yeah.
all. I mean, sometimes I felt like I would switch to a character and be like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm getting it now. Like it's clicking." And then like a level or two would go by, and I'd be like, "No, never mind. I don't know what happened, but it definitely didn't." TLK, did
Yeah.
you feel like that at all? Those kind of things that I'm describing?
I mean, so I had a little bit of a different experience probably because I played through the entire game in four-player co-op. So
Okay.
so I was playing Raphael the whole time, and then my other three friends were playing the other like main turtles. Um,
Okay.
and
Nice.
I mean, it was pretty easy to be honest, like that. Um,
I
now,
bet.
now as to like whether that was just because of the multiplayer or because like I was doing well with the game, I can't say for sure, but like there was things like getting healing for each other and revives
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So,
True.
um, yeah, no, but like I would say that it felt like it was pretty easy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I felt I actually didn't like it initially either. I was like, oh man, like this isn't clicking until I finally tried April, and she's maybe this is placebo. I didn't try all the characters, but it does. Her stars, they have like stars for power, speed, range, and her speed stars were the highest. And I was playing someone that was like supposedly a little slower. I didn't really feel that much of a difference, but. I'm like, maybe I should try someone that's like fast. And so I picked her, and like almost immediately it was like it clicked. I love her how fast she runs. And so like I would run to one side of the screen, and if you hit the attack button, she like does this like knee attack. And so she'd do a knee attack, and the person would bounce off the stage. I'd like hit them a few times, and then like some ninjas jump from the other side of the screen. I'd like run and immediately like do a knee attack on them, and then they get stun locked and everything. And then I grab someone, and the freaking throw that just throws them off screen towards you is completely broken. I abused the crap out of that. Thankfully, there's some enemies that are immune to that. But whenever it would get like a little hairy, I'm like, oh man, there's like too many people on screen right now. I just like walk up to someone, chuck them away. I'm like, all right, done with this guy. I can focus
Dang,
on other
okay.
people. So yeah, like I think I had a complete opposite experience than you, Graham. It was very fluid. It felt for me, it was very fluid. There were times where it did get a little oppressive with aerial enemies. Her air attack I didn't really like because she just like swings her camera like a few times, whereas the other characters they'll do like a constant spin, and so there's like an active hitbox the whole time. Whereas
Yeah.
with her, you have to like make sure you hit them at the right time. But yeah, aside when there weren't a ton of air enemies, and this is where I figure like the co-op intention comes in. It's like, okay, some characters better on the ground, others better in the air, to kind of cover all the bases. Aside from that, dude, like I'm not understating. I'm like, man, I want to play some more brawlers, some more arcade brawlers. 'Cause I had a genuinely good time with this. Like I felt like the enemy variety was just great. They would come in correct amounts. Like I never felt too much that there were too many enemies on screen. It always felt like I was able to. I had to stay on my toes the whole time, but it always felt like as I was killing the last two, 3 or 4 more enemies were jumping on screen, and you really had to like pay attention. Well, not that much attention because like they're all kind of color coordinated, but you had to know like, oh yeah, this enemy is the one that like they'll counter me if I attack them, so I have to come down from like the air or whatever. And so yeah, overall I had like a really great time. If I only really have one complaint, is that like the last boss, Shredder, was totally underwhelming. I was expecting to have like, okay, well this is the final guy. I just made it through the gauntlet and now I can finally face off against the last guy. And he was just it felt like I was fighting a Zelda boss. Rather, like I had to like observe his patterns and then just hit him when there was a window, rather than like fighting someone in a brawler, right? Like someone who could fight back and all that stuff. And I was like, dang, everything else was so good. And then we hit the final boss, who's supposed to be the peak of all of this, and it was a complete opposite. It was a wash, unfortunately. But yeah, that's my only complaint. Other than that, like, I had a ton of fun.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I was the only one who kind of felt that way, and that makes sense. I do agree quite a bit, George. It always felt like the enemies were just right. Like the pacing of enemies and the amount of enemies felt like pretty good overall. It didn't feel like the game was like overly difficult. Like I didn't die very much. Like I died maybe like a handful of times, but it was just like I constantly felt like I was getting knocked around. I couldn't get into like a proper flow state. Like it just felt like getting knocked down took too long, and it was too easy to get hit randomly by stuff that wasn't telegraphed well enough, or whatnot. So it just I never really clicked super well with the combat, but it was like fine. And yeah, like I said, the balancing on enemy encounters was pretty good. That being said, I think I definitely did not like the bosses. I thought they were very boring and poorly designed. I mean, even the last boss, like I was just like, I didn't necessarily think like, oh, this boss sucked. I was just kind of like, at the end, I was just like, all right, it's finished. I'm done, I guess. Like this game's over. I'll go do something else now, kind of thing. What did you feel about the bosses, TLK?
Yeah, like a lot of the combat in the game, I feel like it was really hit or miss. Like I was thinking of more ideas as George was talking there. Between like the fluidity of the combat and non-fluidity, right? And the game would like kind of wildly vary between feeling fluid or not, just depending on like if like the enemy might just have like one attack that kind of like makes the
Right.
game feel not fluid. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
and I felt the same way about the bosses, where like sometimes it'd be like, oh, this is really working, but then the boss would just have like this one random attack, and it's like, oh, this is just obnoxious, and I'm not having fun right now. And then like suddenly they stop doing that attack, and it's easy. Like
Yeah.
They did have some of those, yeah. The
What-
whatever one in the car, when you're chasing them on a skateboard,
Oh.
and they're like in a car. I hated that boss fight. The hitbox of the car was the jankiest thing, and you'd like get to it and you could punch it, and then you move a centimeter forward, and your character like topples to the side. It's like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, and your basic attack combo would bring you forward. I think on that level I was playing April as well, actually, and like you would go
Yeah.
forward with her attack and walk
Yep.
into the thing, and I was just like, this is the most unfun boss you could possibly imagine. It's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
what is with the game's obsession in giving like freaking every boss some kind of charge move that just goes across the whole thing, and you literally just are like,
Yes.
all right, very cool. It's got like a massive jank hitbox. Yeah, it just didn't feel great.
Yeah. I wish some of the bosses were more fighting oriented. Like you felt like you were, because a lot of the enemies, they were kind of like one track enemies, and they had like one or two moves, but the variants came in the different enemy types, right? You usually weren't fighting just the same enemy the whole time. You'd have,
Right.
2 or 3 different types of enemies on screen. So like I didn't like the robot enemies. Actually, now that I think about it, most of the robotic enemies were kind of annoying because it didn't feel like I was fighting a brawler again. But
Yeah.
whenever I was fighting like the ninjas, there was like, what's really weird, and maybe this is just because it's part of the TMNT. Gosh, I can't say that. Universe is like there were like the weirdest variants of enemies, but it all kind of felt cohesive. Like you'd be fighting rock golems and like dinosaurs and ninjas all in one screen, and you're like, yeah, this works. I
Tracks.
guess.
It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But the robotic enemies, usually they'd like shoot at you from afar, and there was no really way to like kind of fight them. You just had to wait for their attack to stop and then the window to open, and it didn't like, I don't know, it didn't really feel like a brawler kind of enemy, but everything else was great. And I'm so glad I played this. Like I want to look for more games like this. I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. So TLK, I'm really curious to hear specifically about how it was to fight enemies with 4 players. Like right now, like when George and I played through, we played through solo, and we felt like the enemy density was good, and the enemies had some kind of like counterplay, like they fought back a lot to like what we were doing. But did it feel like that with 4 players, or did it feel like you like locked down enemies and like deleted them as they showed up? How did that kind of play out?
Yeah, most of the time I feel like it was more like that, right? Like if the enemy had their like guard up in the front or whatever, but you could just come over and kick them in the back or whatever. Like, there's all kinds of stuff like that. It was, I think there was probably more enemies. I don't actually know this, but I assume there was like more enemies for more players.
Hmm.
So there would
Okay.
probably be a lot more enemies on the screen at once. But like, there's probably at all times an enemy somewhere that you can go take advantage of that isn't like in the proper position to deal with you.
Hmm.
Um,
Were
so
there any
yeah.
sort of combos or things you could do with more players, or was it just 4 of you playing individually in the same on the same screen kind of deal, on the same
Uh,
stage?
Not combos, but you could stagger your like super abilities or whatever, right?
Ah,
And so like
yeah.
if instead of using them all at once, if you take turns using them, that's like pretty overpowered.
Oh,
I can,
frick.
especially in like a boss fight, because they'd bring mobs. Yeah, I can see why that'd be
Yeah,
so
which is
good.
what we
Okay.
started doing. We're like, oh, if we stagger these, it's like really strong. So
Okay,
Smart.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, how did you guys feel about the music in the game? I thought it was incredibly forgettable.
I don't
I can't remember
even.
any of it.
Yeah,
So
I can't even remember anything. So yeah,
All right.
forgettable is the key word here.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, that's also what I thought. There's one thing I did really like about this game, though. The thing that I really liked the most is it really did feel like it had 90s video game sensibility and charm. Like seeing like the Foot Clan guys like doing random stuff in the background, like being a cashier or like doing random stuff, and then like at random
Yeah.
points they'll just be like, "All right, we're gonna join in the fight now." It's just like, this is such like a silly '90s kind of thing, and they had like that '90s attitude. As someone who's like the biggest freaking fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is basically like everything the 90s video game character encompasses, I really jived with the whole like feel and vibe that the game had going on. Did anyone else feel the same?
yeah, I
Yeah, I
definitely see where you're coming from.
yeah.
Did yeah, go ahead, George. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say like not only just like those cool little details, but like the whole story. I don't know how much we want to get into it right now, but like the whole story was just wacky and whimsical.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely like, okay, I haven't watched a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I was like, okay, yeah, I can see this being like an episode and one of the things like, oh, Shredder's gonna turn, the Statue of Liberty into a freaking mass murder weapon. Yeah, let's go stop him. I'm like, all right, yeah,
Right.
this fits.
Yeah. I thought it was awesome. I love that. Like it's just
Yeah.
so like the story didn't I mean, okay, but so we know that George is like a big story guy. TLK is also a big story guy. I'm not a story guy at all. I love a great story. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely will freaking love it. And I love like well-written characters and good story, blah blah blah. But if you stripped out a story like in this game and you just had basically gameplay, because I mean the story is almost non-existent in this game, I am totally
Yeah.
fine. How did you guys feel going through the game without any story, or did you not care because of just kind of how this game was? TLK?
You go for it first, TLK. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I barely even remember anything that happened, to be honest. Like, it was kind of just like, oh, we're running along and now we're fighting this guy, and oh, he escaped, and like you said, now he's in the Statue of Liberty, and now he's like, uh, okay, all this stuff is happening. I was just like, all right, whatever, like, even though I am a big story guy, this is not the kind of game where I expect there to be any kind of meaningful story. Like,
Same.
the enjoyment purely comes down to like, is it fun to beat people up, right? Like,
Right.
that's the experience. Um, and so even though the story was pretty forgettable, I didn't mind in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, I echo a lot of those things. Like, this is not the type of game that I expect a story for. However, it did serve as like a nice backdrop for like the excuse to basically continue the game. And I did like that each stage was different from the last, and it kind of tracked with whatever the previous story beat in the previous stage left off. I did kind of find it kind of odd that like at the end of each stage, the player playing would like break the fourth wall, and like at least April, she'd like turn to the camera and like drop her mic, and she'd be like, mission complete here, or like nothing to see here. I don't remember exactly what she say, but it's like, oh, okay, like a game is like almost self-aware that it's like it's like a show, but it's not, obviously, because it's a video game. But yeah,
Interesting.
it was very minimal, but it served its purpose. I guess.
Yeah, it's so stupid because every time like something would happen, I'd be like, the body part of the robot dude at some point comes out of the arcade machine and a claw comes and grabs it. It's like, guys, you had so much time to get the body piece, and even like when the claw's coming down, you could have like cut the freaking cable on the claw that picked up the thing. Like, what the frick? None of this makes any sense. There's so many plot holes. Obviously, it's just for fun, but like, it's just funny to see like how kind of nonsensical so many of the things were, and they're just like, we just need something next to happen. Basically, it's just like, all right, okay, fair enough. We'll just keep going.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like, I don't even want to say that if I had to give like the game like a rating, I don't feel like I would say that it was even great or maybe even good. I was just like, felt like it was fine. Like I was just like, I finished playing and I was like, that was fine. It wasn't like bad, but I wouldn't say it's good either. It's just like very mid. Which is disappointing because I really did feel like I was gonna go into it and be like, yeah, now we need to like get everyone together and like play this. Like this is gonna be such silly fun. But I just didn't really feel like that. I was just kind of like, all right, I'm ready to never play this game again. So it just didn't quite feel like I had hoped.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for final thoughts for me, like, I really don't have much more to say that I haven't already said. I actually like this game a lot. I wouldn't say it's like a masterpiece, right? But it was good. It was like a really good game. I had a lot of fun. I'm glad that it was short. As much as I enjoyed the gameplay, I don't, if it was like, twice the length even, because it's only like 3 hours to beat. If it was twice the length, maybe if I was playing with friends, it'd feel a little bit better, but by myself, 3 hours was like a perfect time investment.
Right.
As much as I liked it, but that said, I'll now be on the lookout for more arcade brawlers and see if I can maybe pick some more up. And it's possible that this game isn't even that good compared to most brawlers, but the fact that it's just like my first one,
Right.
maybe I just like that type of game, and there's way better ones out there. But for now, since it's the only one I played, it's the best one I played. So
Inevitably.
yeah.
What are your kind of like overall thoughts, TLK?
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast playing it personally. I mean, like, I had 3 other friends over at my house, and we were just like, oh, let's play through this game. So we played through the whole thing in one sitting.
So you did it all like couch co-op then?
Yeah,
it wasn't like
local couch co-op.
local.
So, like,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so like, at least because of that, like, I personally had a great time playing through it. Like, we're just like, eating pizza and like whatever, like the old days, like.
It's
Dude,
perfect.
that's awesome.
It's perfect.
So like it's hard to say like if I played it solo if I would have like a different feeling about it. But like I mean, I think that kind of game is probably at its best when it is played in co-op because that's like it's designed around being played that way. So I would be curious if you guys did try it in co-op if that improved your opinions of it at all.
Right.
True.
Yeah, for sure.
True.
How many cowabungas did you guys say while you were playing the game and eating pizza?
Okay, what we actually were doing was, when you like exhausted your ability and they would say like a voice line, to say they didn't have a voice line, we were just spamming that over and over again. The one guy, he's like, I'm one tired turtle when he
Oh,
doesn't have
no.
his ability ready, and we'd just be like spamming that like over and over and over again.
One tired
Oh my
turtle.
gosh.
Nice.
That's hilarious. It's so funny to me that you would play a TMNT game while eating pizza. It's like
I was just gonna say that. That's like perfect.
quintessential.
That's the way to
fucking-
do it, man.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Nice.
Yeah, it does seem like a game that could be fun to crank the difficulty up on and then go play on like a stream or something. I mean, it's doubtful we'll ever do that on the channel unless we were full time. We had more time. We don't even have time to play the games we really want to play.
I know. Yeah.
But it does seem like it has the potential to be like really goofy because I think it was more than 4 players. I think you could play 6. Can you not?
Is that true?
I think so. Yeah, the number of slots open.
Right. They had a number of slots. Let's see. Let me do a quick.
It's been a
players.
minute since I don't remember, but it does feel like the slots were like way bigger actually.
Right. When I was doing the character selection, 6 players. When I was doing the
6
character
players,
selection,
nice.
it was like, adding people in. I was like, holy frick, this is a lot of slots. What's going on here? Yeah, so imagine like 6 people playing this. It would just be absolute freaking utter chaos.
Chaos. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It'd be a
But-
good kind of chaos though. But
Right,
yes.
yeah, it could be a fun time. So, yeah, it's definitely cool. I can understand why TLK would have a better time than us going through with multiple people, especially in local co-op. Like, I feel like
Oh.
playing this with a group of friends local would be a hilarious time. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those are memories right there. Those are
Yeah.
cherished memories.
seriously. Yeah, it reminds me of Towerfall, I think it is. We played that locally.
That was so good.
And just
that was
like-
so good.
Yeah, like playing that solo would have been not nearly as incredible as the experience we had playing it multiplayer. So I can
I
understand
probably would not have enjoyed it playing it by myself. To be
100%.
honest. Like a lot of the stuff is just the cahoots that you get with your friends. Like that's a huge
Yeah.
part of the sell. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I think overall it was a fine game, even better in multiplayer. I mean, that could be said for pretty much every game ever, but this is
True.
probably one that is even enhanced more so on top of that. But anything else you guys want to say before we close up on this one?
I think that's it for me. Yeah, I think I've said my piece on this one.
You okay?
I'll just say the thing that I just thought of when we were talking about previously, which is there was a slight downside to playing with multiple people, which I was having a really hard time keeping track of my character sometimes.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you that because you said you
True.
were all playing the turtles, right? I was going to ask you
Yeah.
how visibility was on that.
It's bad. It was pretty bad, to be honest. Like, even when I was like keeping my eyes only on my character, every once in a while I'd be like, wait, where did I go?
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, that's part of the chaos, so it's whatever.
True.
But yeah, final thoughts, I'd say, like, it's pretty fun, especially with a group of people. Not like one of those games that you remember, right? Like,
Right.
I might never think about it again once, like, we're done talking about it on the channel, but,
Right.
but like, I had
but
a
the
good time
memories
with it,
last
so-
forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Memories with the friends.
True. Yeah, great point. It's a great point. Yeah. It's and I think that's worth it. I mean, I don't think this game's worth it was like what, $25? Or is it
Oh, it is not worth $25.
Yeah, like it's definitely not worth that. But I think if you bought it on sale, and you have some people to play with, it's worth like a fun night of just like playing through it and having a good time. As TLK is saying, I think the memories there are worth it. But other than that,
it's on Game Pass, so
True.
that's the way I picked it up. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have paid full price for this. It's
Yeah.
But yeah,
so-
Game Pass is pretty good.
Yeah, so it's maybe worth a shot if you have like you and some buddies have some Game Pass access and you can play together. But yeah, all right. Well, this has been a pleasure. We will have the next game when it's ready, when it's been voted on. We'll have it in the description. But with that, George, why don't you take us away into the night?
Okay, yeah, it's been a fun, guys, having this conversation. It's been awesome. Like we said earlier, if you want to vote on whatever game we play and you want to be present in these conversations, go ahead and sign up for the Premium Game Club through Patreon. You can sub on Twitch or YouTube, whatever fits your fancy. But with that, we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
See ya.
Yep.